Alright, hello, my name is Reagan Wilkinson, and the title of my policy paper is Who to Call About Medical Ghostwriting, Ghostbusting the Pharmaceutical Industry. So first I would like to discuss what the policy problem is. So in order to do that, I'm going to define what exactly is ghostwriting. According to a 2007 article, medical ghostwriting is defined as medical writers used by pharmaceutical companies or contract research organizations and medical communication agencies that service the health industry. So who all is involved? The writers and the journals of medical information produce a paper, and it's completely normal until it's disclosed that it was funded or even perhaps written by the pharmaceutical company that's the drugs and the products that are being researched. So they produce this paper that then physicians and patients use to make their medical decisions, only to find out that not all of the information regarding the product has been disclosed, and it results in some very scary complications. So historically, medical writers have always written their own work, and unless they used a special guest or an editor, they disclosed who all was involved. Now the issue comes when they claim writing assistance is coined over ghostwriting, and the real author is not disclosed because the pharmaceutical company wrote their own research on their product and then paid a prominent writer or physician to put their name on the paper to make it credible. So it's endorsing a product by a secret author, and it's very concerning. So the significance of this problem is that the medical industry relies so heavily on scientific and clinical evidence, and when these are tainted with unethical practices, patients and families are the ones who pay the price, and the whole system really is rendered ineffective. So furthermore, the requirements for authorship varies with every publishing company and even every subject being reported on, so there's a complete lack of standardization. So the underlying problem is that Big Pharma has expanded its network of social influence into every branch of medical, educational, advertising, and political sectors, both foreign and domestic. So they have these endless bank accounts that has given them insurmountable power, and they've only used it for corporate and financial interests instead of the public good. So I already disclosed these stakeholders, and now I would like to disclose their opinions. So obviously the pharmaceutical companies really only care about their business and their wallets, maintaining their power, whereas the public and the patients all are suffering from these powerful entities controlling their health. And the physicians are kind of just puppets being used in this. They're kind of the middleman. And politicians, the reason I have them as politicians and not as Republicans and Democrats is because really politicians all have this same goal regarding ghostwriting. They know it's bad and they don't want it to happen because so many patients suffer from the effects of ghostwriting. So I really don't think there would be a difference between the parties in that regard, as well as they are concerned with re-election. So, and then medical journals and authors obviously are involved in this process, as they are also used as puppets by the pharmaceutical companies. They're told what to produce, what it should say, and they're paid a lot of money to stay quiet. So I wanted to include this picture because I think it's a great representation of really what this looks like. Everybody is fighting for power and there's kind of no agreement across the board because everybody has different values. People want honest care and informed consent. Doctors want to give their patients all of the information and the right medication, and they're the ones that the patient comes to when the medicine isn't working right. And the pharmaceutical company, as I said, wants to protect their bank accounts and continue business the way it's going. The politicians really care about re-elections, and the journals want a good reputation while the writers need business. So it's a lot of different actors, and they all have different goals, and it really just convolutes the entire process. So my policy solutions are the following. So I have the database expansion from the Sunshine Act. So the Physician Payment Sunshine Act was passed in 2010 alongside the Affordable Care Act, and it federally mandates physicians, dentists, chiropractors, and other skilled health professionals disclose their financial transactions with pharmaceutical and medical device companies. So it's been really successful in protecting physicians from the influence of pharmaceutical companies. So this database discloses that information to the public, and there's no hidden transactions or backdoor dealings happening between pharmaceutical companies and doctors. So the expansion would include medical journals, writers, and pharmaceutical companies to prevent any sort of hidden transaction that's going on that's swaying the writing and the research that's being done on these products prior to reaching the patient. The second option is reporting incentivizing. So it would encourage integrity and honor amongst the industry employees to give them kind of a monetary benefit and also the threat of exposure. This would all hopefully dissuade them from committing the crime and ruining their career. So that would be another policy option. And then obviously the status quo, which is, staying the course of action as it is right now, which is inaction. So the criteria used to evaluate all these policy options. We have quality, which used in this paper, it's the quality of care to the patients. So there's not a whole lot of studies investigating the effects of ghostwriting on quality, but it's safe to say that there is a direct correlation between the quality of written medical information and the health outcomes from that information. And then there's the cost, so that's kind of easier to place values on. But Senator Grassley, who he's the father of the Sunshine Act, he said ghostwriting hurts patients and raises costs for taxpayers because it uses prestigious academic names to promote medical products and treatments that might be expensive and or less effective than viable alternatives. So obviously ghostwriting does have a major cost, and that's a major factor that needs to be considered. For example, the hormone replacement therapy drugs Premarin and Prempro, made by Wyeth, it reached $2 billion in profits based off of 26 ghost-written scientific articles claiming the drugs protected women from heart disease, dementia, and prevented aging. But they ended up being linked to breast cancer, stroke, and heart disease. So cost is pretty important. Then the feasibility both looks at political feasibility and how the policy would be able to survive Capitol Hill, and administrative feasibility, which refers to how possible, how the policy recommendation can be carried out and what resources would be needed to achieve it. Now, ethical is pretty self-explanatory. We want to use a utilitarian approach for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So what's going to benefit the most number of stakeholders involved in this? And then the equitable. So we want to make sure that the policy recommended is equitable and that the fairness of it reaches as many stakeholders as we can. Not all of them are going to get everything that they want, but we want to do the best we can. So the evaluating policy options, the database, clearly quality and cost would be benefited. Feasibility is a little iffy because it would take a lot to pass the information, and then ethical and equitable would both be satisfied. For incentivizing reporting, quality and cost would be increased. Feasibility is also iffy. Equity is kind of iffy as well, and ethical would be satisfied. And the status quo, almost nothing is satisfied except for feasibility, simply because we wouldn't be doing anything. So here's a comparison of all of the solutions, and really the biggest thing I want to highlight is the database expansion is the lowest value, which is what we want. Both unweighted, and then even when weighted, the value gets lower, which means it even improves when we use weights. So overall, the policy recommendation is the expansion of the Sunshine Act database, and the results from the implementation would be a huge improvement in the health industry as a whole. The sources of medical information would ensure trustworthy material, and harmful products would never make it to a patient. There wouldn't be any legal implications, as pharmaceutical companies wouldn't hurt patients or deal with class action lawsuits from bad products. Patients would be more informed of every medicine and device that they're using. That promotes trust in the companies. The physicians would no longer have to worry about secret side effects from their treatment choices and bad research articles that they're getting their information from. The medical journals would have their integrity and their reputation back, as they would provide medical literature that is safe and honest. And so the recommended policy option really satisfies the most valued criteria discussed in this paper, proving not only its effectiveness in preventing medical ghostwriting, but also the likelihood of successful improvement of healthcare in America, and other countries would be able to follow this. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.